Hi, I'm Ryan Alessi for CN2 Politics, and we're here with a recovering journalist and a rehabilitated public official. So we've got the partners from Strategic Partners, is that right?
Strategic Advisors.
Strategic Advisors,
Right,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
That's
Pat
all right.
Crowley, the former political reporter for the Kentucky Enquirer, and Jay Fawcett, former city manager of Covington. So thanks for being with us, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Well, hey, I wanted to talk about some Northern Kentucky political issues because Northern Kentucky is the site of the first formal recounts that Kentucky has had in 16 years with these judge executive races in Campbell and Boone counties. Fill us in, what happened with these races that they were so close and contentious?
I think that on a macro scale, Ryan, it's really a microcosm of what's going on in the country. There is a big fight in the Republican Party right now about who's going to control it. Is it going to be the traditional Republicans, or I want to say, for lack of a better word, the Tea Party, the new invigorated people who are very concerned about spending? And that's what you saw. That's who was energized in this election. Elections anymore are about who's the most energized. In 2008, it was the Democrats with Barack Obama. Now it's on the Republican side, and I think that's what we saw.
Absolutely. I think that those two races are very, very close, and we haven't seen that in Northern Kentucky in a primary in a very long time. So people are engaged right now.
Is the Tea Party, is that, because these were both Republican primaries, so is the Tea Party having a big effect on the local races here?
You know, I think the Tea Party ginned some support up, and they're active, and they had some rallies, and they recruited candidates. But I also think there's just a lot of people who are kind of gravitating towards the Tea Party because that's where the juice is right now. But there are just, I think the broader issue is there are people very concerned about what's going on with spending, and I think that's a legitimate question no matter what party you're in. The Tea Party happens to be, they have the bully pulpit right now. The Freedom Works group that Dick Armey and Steve Forbes were involved with, they really started this, and the Tea Party kind of glommed onto that. And now I'm hearing Steve Forbes doing commercials for the Tea Party. So they've risen to the top right now, and I think they're going to continue to be a factor with this. But there's just a lot of discontentment out there right now.
Yeah.
And Jay, I mean, being from the public side there, you would hear that from voters, I'm sure, about their concern about public spending and everything. Are you hearing more of that now than when you were in office?
I think that there is still, I think the economy, the recession has really brought out a particular thought in the voters that wasn't really there 3 years ago when things are going pretty well. So yeah, I think it's still, people are still concerned about the economy, and I still think that's driving a lot of people to join the Tea Party and these other groups that are challenging the status quo.
But in the end, in both of those two races, I mean, if the unofficial results hold up and the recounts, particularly in Boone County, that one's still going on, if that doesn't overturn things, the establishment incumbent actually won, right? I mean,
yes, they did. But the lesson is incumbents don't usually, the races like Jay said before, usually aren't that close. Incumbency around here is usually pretty much your ticket until you want to retire or move on, unless you totally have a scandal or something. And neither of these judge executives, Steve Pendry or Gary Moore, had anything like that. But they've been in office a while, and there's big targets on incumbents' backs right now. And Ryan, I think there's a good lesson here that even though with 24/7, when I was reporting, and you heard it at the Herald Leader, that people bemoan, oh, there's nothing but negative news, and I'm sick of it. I think the reason is people are more engaged is because they can go out and they can find the news. Now, unfortunately, they go to where they agree. The conservatives go to Fox, the more liberals go to MSNBC, but they're still engaged with it. And I think that's why the turnout. You had mentioned turnout. We were talking off camera. The turnout was much higher than the county clerks even predicted. And you don't see those kind of numbers in a primary around here. And I think that's because people care right now.
So, because as you mentioned, you've got, I think, double the turnout of the last local elections in the primary this time around. Is it that people are more engaged, as you said, because they're checking the news, or are some of these transplants who have moved to Northern Kentucky aren't necessarily from here? They're plugging in a little bit more to the local communities.
I think that there was some people over the years who kind of threw their hands up and said, "To heck with it, I don't want anything to do with it." For now, whatever reason, probably because the Tea Party started this, and people like Rand Paul, who's running for Senate, were out talking about it so much that it got people re-engaged. I know people were voting and going to the polls that hadn't gone in years, and they were more excited than ever. And I think that you're just going to continue to see that throughout as we get into the Senate race. I mean, Rand Paul, we are the ground zero for the Tea Party. He's the most powerful candidate, successful candidate they've had so far. So Kentucky's going to continue to stay in the news with that.
I think another thing that you have now that you didn't have in past elections is social media and the connection people now have through the internet and through Facebook and the various types of Twitter. I think that is really engaging people more today than in the past, and so I think that will continue as well.
And you know, we had some friends that ran campaigns, and you know, the turnout wasn't on anybody's model, and it totally screwed up their efforts and their advertising and everything else. They didn't see it coming either. Even the people that do this every day for a living didn't see the turnouts that came out.
Wow, so when you say it kind of screwed up their efforts in terms of who to check for,
Sure.
Get out the vote in the fall, even.
Yeah, you're right, because people are worried. Okay, we do these. There's so many of these phone surveys and so many of these phone polls, but you know, I don't get them because I never answer my house phone. I answer a cell phone, so I'm never going to be polled. And there's people that are independents, and you know, where are they going? And there's more people getting engaged. So I think that is going to be a lesson. I know a really good friend of ours was involved in one of these races, and they had about 2,000 more voters turn out than they expected, and made the race a lot closer than they thought it was going to be. And they just couldn't track those people. They had no idea where they were coming from.
Wow. So what does that mean for the fall then? Does Jack Conway in the U.S. Senate race have any shot up here, or is this Rand Paul territory in northern Kentucky?
I think the Democrats finally think they have an opportunity to win that Senate race. I think for the first time, this is northern Kentucky is definitely Republican. I mean, Boone County 20 years ago was Democratic, and it's switched completely the other way around. But I think northern Kentucky is still Republican territory in a federal race like that. But I think the Democrats in the state think this might be an opportunity because of Rand Paul, and they think they can make him look to be different than a typical candidate.
Yeah, they can pick away at him. There's some good people running that campaign. I covered them for years, the people that are running that, and they know how to go after somebody if they've made some missteps. That said, this is where Rand Paul got his legs in this state, Bowling Green and here. There was a lot of business people that jumped on the Paul bandwagon back when he was with his taxpayers organization. They brought him up last summer, and he started to get support and worked it hard. And you know, he beat Trey Grayson, a Northern Kentucky native, by what, 20, 30 points in some of these counties up here. It's going to be tough for Conway to make a good foothold up here. That said, he is a good, attractive candidate, and has got some good people running his campaign.
Yeah, where Grayson kind of fell short was he tried to make the race about Rand Paul, and that seemed to only fuel Rand Paul.
Right.
What is the path for Jack Conway to make an effective argument against Rand Paul, or does he just have to change the subject completely?
I think that, you know, you were looking at, you know, this is very elementary, but it's so true. Primaries are different than generals, and there was only so many things Grayson could do in a primary because you're appealing to the most conservative voters. I think that the lesson, as Paul gets into it, if he keeps saying some things that seem out of whack a little bit, although what he said, frankly, I don't know how bad it's going to hurt him in Kentucky as much as it makes national news. But I think if he continues to do that, and if he's undisciplined and makes mistakes, I think the Democrats will be able to jump on that. But you know, the way these election cycles moves, November's a long way, and we'll see how Conway comes out. And we'll have to just kind of sit back and watch Paul how he's going to handle a long campaign with a lot of scrutiny, also though with a lot of support and a lot of money. I mean, the Tea Party all over the country is excited about this guy, and that's going to send a ton of resources, money, and attention in here.
You have to be impressed with what he did in the primary for a newcomer to elections. He did a great job, ran a really good campaign. Of course, his father has run some before, and he has that experience there, but I think everybody was impressed with the campaign he ran in his past primary.
And I was surprised to see, I think I read it, did you blog it, that Mitch McConnell's holding a fundraiser for Rand Paul?
Yeah, so, I think Politico broke that story first. So the establishment and the anti-establishment, they've officially made up, at least in fundraising circles.
Exactly.
So. I think in the Dems also, they're going to come in here and try to cut the head off this thing, and they see a chance to do it here. And there were some encouraging signs last week with the Democrats, with Blanche Lincoln winning in Arkansas. So you know, the Democrats aren't down and out. They got to plug this oil spill because that's hurting them right now.
Exactly.
I don't think it's Obama's fault, obviously, but it's their administration right now, and big issues like that impact a national race like a Senate race.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, any other races that you all are watching around the state this fall that could end up being surprises, could end up playing some major implications on the state-wide level in Frankfort or in the federal races?
You know, I've been out of it 8 months, and you feel like forever. But will Ben Chandler have any type of problem down there? I don't know what the numbers are showing on that. Ryan, you know better than I do on that. Do you think he's okay?
Well, he's got a challenge from Andy Barr, and you know, they don't agree on many issues, but the one big one that a lot of Republicans have been using against Democratic incumbents has been that health care vote, and Chandler voted against that. So that's a big bullet that's taken out of Andy Barr's gun. So
I read something interesting from Bill Clinton yesterday, or today I think in Politico, where he's telling Democrats, you know, quit running from what you are. They're going to hit you with it anyway, so embrace it and find what the silver linings are there. I don't know what that is specifically yet for the Democrats, but I think that Democrats need to get back. They can't they're not going to out-conservative Rand Paul. They're not going to outright him, so they're going to have to be themselves a little bit and show what they can do, and I think show government works for people. You know, I was surprised. Cincinnati's also a little bit of a hotbed of a Tea Party, and in their midterm elections and their primary elections, about 70% of the tax increases passed, which was really unusual. I used to cover over there, and they used to get slaughtered. I'm talking 20 years ago. So I think people recognize that if they see value in it, they will support what the government's doing, and there's a lesson that if government can deliver what people want, then maybe they'll embrace that, and that's going to have to be at least part of the Democratic message that we can help you with government.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Paul spins it the other way. So, because you know, most of this focus is going to be on that Senate race.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We'll see how it goes. Well, gentlemen, thank you both for coming on and for CN2 Politics. I'm Ryan Alessi. Thanks for watching.